Welcome to the Businesses Start Here podcast, hosted by David Vigliotti and Vigliotti and Associates. We're here to talk with business owners and business experts to inspire and encourage entrepreneurs.
Hello, welcome to another episode of the Businesses Start Here podcast. We've got Adriana Cisneros Basulto with us today, and she's going to talk to us a little bit about her business, Maxwell, and just starting a business. So Adriana, we're happy to have you here and excited to get to know you.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Sure. So we'll get right into it real quick. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and about Maxwell and kind of how you got to where you are now?
Yes. So again, Adriana, I am the founder of Maxwell. And really what we do is we help teams crush it at work and at home. We make it easy for employers to offer their teams the types of benefits and perks that they actually want and need to be productive and to also have the time that they need to rest and recharge, because ultimately that's what makes them be awesome at their job and in life. Awesome. So yeah, that's what we do.
Good. So how long have you been in business?
Let's see, we're coming on a year, officially in a year. But I would say a lot of it has been in validation mode for a while. So while it's been a year since we've been open for business, it has been several iterations of based on the learnings that we've had.
Okay. Why don't you tell me a little bit about that validation mode and kind of what you were doing before you started the business to make sure that it was something viable that you could do?
Yeah. So to give you a little bit of background, a little bit of context, I'll talk first about me and then even what generated the idea and then how the validation looked. So the first part of my career, I spent it actually on the marketing side. And I thought that's what I was going to do with the rest of my career. And really, when I say marketing, I don't mean like the fun things that most people think about when they think about marketing, like branding or advertising or anything like that. I spent it doing the things that are on the background, like product development, product management, pricing, market segmentation, project management, that sort of thing.
So it sounds like you worked with a lot of data probably then.
Yes, there was quite a bit of analysis and just like going deep into like, what do customers really want? What is it that based on that want and need, and what is it that based on that we could offer them? Okay. So yeah, a lot of that. And I really liked it. I liked it, even though that for a lot of people it's like, ugh, that doesn't sound exciting. I enjoyed it a lot. But I was pregnant with my second child, and my second child is now turning 10. So this was many years ago. Okay. And at the time, I had a very unusual schedule for the times, which meant that I worked from home 2 days of the week. And that was really important for our family because we were really busy between my husband's career and mine. And then I'm the only one that speaks Spanish to my kids. And that was really important to me to keep that going. So having those 2 days working from home allowed us to do that. But the new manager that I had did not like it. He decided that working from home was not something that I should do anymore. And then I thought, gosh, well, what am I going to do here where it's not because there's an issue with my performance. It's not because I'm not available. And even then, this is not a possibility. I suppose I'm just probably going to have to quit or like figure out something else because, if in a place where they know the quality of my work, they're not willing to do that anymore. How can I find another place that will?
Right.
And so that fast forward ended up meaning me staying in the same company, but in HR. HR reached out and they were like, hey, actually, we're starting something new in HR and we need help from someone that has the background that you have. And so they were doing lots of things with redoing all of their framework for compensation and titling and things of the sort. And I thought, I know nothing about HR. Are you sure you want to hire me for this? And this is like compensation, and this is like really dear and near to people. And they were like, no. This is great. Like you work with data and you segmentation. It's translatable. we'll teach you the HR things. So all this to say that I ended up loving it, David. So I ended up really enjoying being on the people side, and I stayed there for many years doing a variety of things. The reason why I tell you these two stories is because, one, it tells you a little bit about my background and how I had some experience with segmenting and validating and trying to understand what people care for. But the other is also what triggered the idea of Maxwell and the need for it, which was my unique experience both as a professional and then a person in HR.
Right.
So, sorry, I'm going in a very roundabout way to share
That's
what
okay.
it could look like.
No problem. We have time.
Yeah. But yes, so once I decided that I was going to focus on Maxwell, then validation looked like this. Initially, it was very informal. I just reached out to some core group of people, friends of mine that I knew could think both as an HR person, but also as the user of Maxwell. And I invited them to have lunch, and I just shared, hey, this is what I'm thinking. What do you think? Is there a market for it? Or if there isn't, like, why not? Would you use it? Would you use it as an HR person? So that was the initial validation. Later, in later stages, it was actually in the form of a survey with more structured questions that I sent out, followed by structured interviews where I expanded my scope of people that I was interviewing and gathering their feedback, not just on the idea that I had for Maxwell, but also just at large, how were they managing their life, how they were making it work for them. And then the latter stage, and the one that we continue to do, is now through product. Like, we put the product and product features out there, and then we get to hear from actual customers if, based on their usage, but also on the follow-ups that we do, if that meets their needs, or how else could we be meeting them.
Awesome. Good. So you got a lot of input from end users at the start, is what it sounds like.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also people that that you trusted. So you started off with a very close circle of people that you trusted, that wouldn't steal your idea, wouldn't steer you wrong, that you knew you could trust, and then kind of expanded as the idea came more solidified and you got farther down the road.
Yeah, and I also, one of the key things is not only that they were trusted, but also I hope to get people that could be open and like really tell me if something did not resonate. Because sometimes, especially in the Midwest where I'm located, people tend to be too nice and they don't want to hurt your feelings. So it's a lot easier to say, oh, yes, that sounds like a great idea. Yeah, absolutely, you should do it. It's a lot harder to say, I don't think that's going to work, or I wouldn't use it, and this is why. Right. So I tried to, for sure, have at least some people that I knew that they would be very honest and share why not, why wouldn't they use it. And then also keep in mind, David, that what I knew from before, from my days in marketing, that at the end of the day, people will tell you lots of things. They will tell you that they will use it, but reality is different. And sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes people think that, no way, I would never use it. I don't need that. And it turns out that they do. I mean, the classic example of all of our phones having a camera, right? Like, someone asks you, would you like a phone that has a camera? If they had asked us that, 25 years ago, would have been like, what a ridiculous idea.
Right.
So yeah, keeping that on the back of my mind too.
Yeah, so you can only prepare and learn so much until when the rubber meets the road and it's time to make a decision. That's when you find out really what you have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you started Maxwell about a year ago. What was the catalyst to make you take that leap? And I guess it was probably a little bit longer than that, obviously, that you've been working on it. But.
Yeah, it had been going on for longer. So I was still in the corporate world in 2018, 2019. It kind of blurs now. But really the catalyst was a series of things. There are specific moments in time where I was like, oh, this could be so much better. But one of them was my last job in the corporate world was leading diversity and inclusion efforts at the largest private bank in the US. And so I was, tasked with leading those efforts and really collaborating across to ensuring that organization was inclusive, that valued diversity. And one of those components was helping to diversify all levels of the organization. So not just, most typically what you see at a lot of companies is from a gender standpoint and really from race, ethnicity, other dimensions of diversity too. The lower levels of the organization tend to be more diverse, but as you move up the ranks in an organization, those tend to change. And so inevitably you end up seeing eventually more and more white males only. And it's super complex. The issue is certainly not just about this, but one of the contributing factors to it is how difficult it is to manage it all if you are the primary caregiver in your home. So whether you are a dual working family and you're the primary caregiver, or you are a single, individual that is a caregiver for either adults or children, it's a lot harder to manage it all and to compete. And so it puts you on an uneven playing ground, right? So if it was you, David, that were the primary caregiver, and when you get home, you still have to, cook a meal, put kids to bed, catch up on work, versus me, I can go home. I don't have to do that. Let's say I have kids, but let's say I didn't. I could stay for the happy hour at the end, and then I could get home and dinner would be ready for me, or I really only have to cook for myself. And then I have time to catch up on work a bunch or just chill. Then it's a very different experience, right? And then repeat again the next day. So that's a big contributing factor. And that's the one that I honed in. And I thought, what if as an employer, we had a way to help our employees with something tangible to manage better work and life, so that they could be more productive because they wouldn't have all these other things on their plate that really someone else could do. But also they would have the time to do the things that they love. So now when you get home, David, on my example, maybe dinner twice a week, it's subsidized by your employer. So that way, what you got to do is actually spend that dinner time happily with your kids, rather than stress out of like, I'm cooking this really quickly and I'm going to feed you because I need to catch up on work. But also that on the weekends, maybe you didn't spend it, doing laundry and, catching up on a bunch of other things, but rather going out on a bike ride, which is something that actually keeps you healthy and promotes well-being. So that was the primary catalyst.
Oh, that's awesome. Because the way our family's set up, my wife stays at home with the kids. She has some things that she does at her church and things like that. But I know even myself as a business owner, I feel, because I'm not the primary caregiver, but I feel a lot of that pressure to be done with work at the end of the day, which isn't always possible, but also still be there present with my kids. So I've always said I can't imagine how single parents or primary caregivers are able to work and take care of families. But I also know my business would not be successful without the setup that we have, where my wife is able to be the primary caregiver. So that's amazing that's what you guys are doing, putting time back in people's day. So, I mean, the one resource nobody can buy more of is time, and you're giving them a way to have that more time, to use it however they need to or want to. So that I really like that. That's awesome.
Great. I'm happy to hear you like it.
Yeah. So when you started the business, how did you grow it? So I assume some of the people that you had look at the product during the, I think we call it the investigation stage, I assume some of them may have become clients because they all of a sudden have a vested interest in you. But what did you do to market the business, and how did you go from 0 clients to where you are now?
Yeah, so I would say our story maybe is slightly, well, not that unique, but unique, different than anyone else that would have started something before the pandemic. We launched in the middle of the pandemic. So the conversations that we were having with employers were, where in February of 2020, when we were like, this is how it's going to look and everything, it started to look very different once March hit. Because now for many employers, it was just a matter of like, well, number one, like all of us, we were wondering, is the world coming to an end? But then it moved into like, hey, right now what we need to focus on is how do we keep people safe? How do we stay in business rather than beyond? So what we did, and this is what we had planned from the get-go, it just ended up looking a little bit different than we thought, is we planned for closed pilot, meaning we will get a few employers to try the platform, to try the product from a specific period of time, which in our case was from August to January. And that way we'll have the ability to gather enough information to understand what works, what doesn't work, and how do we then take those learnings and put them back into the product for the next version.
Okay. So I like that because it gives you a lot of flexibility in terms of pivoting if you need to, and having kind of a group that, and I assume they knew they were part of a pilot program, and they knew that what they see on day one may not be the same thing that they see 6 months later. And then, so that was 6 months ago or so that would have finished then, that first pilot. So how have things gone from then? Did you bring people back and for round 2, or what was the next move after that?
Yeah, so the next move after that for us was taking, like I said, everything that we learned, which there was quite a few things that were surprises for us. Other ones that I was like, oh, I should have thought about that. Like, that makes a lot of sense. I was in HR. Yes,
right.
this is key. So, and we invested all of those learnings, put them back into the product, and really created the next version of Maxwell. That took us quite a bit. That took us quite a bit of time, because it's not only capturing during the pilot, but then afterwards meeting back with people and trying to understand from them directly what worked and what didn't. And then really now we're at the stage where we can call it, this is the product, and it's just going to continue to evolve. It's going to continue to change. Like all products do, right? Continue to just improve and change. So that's where we're at today. What was the other thing I was going to mention on it? Yeah. What I was going to mention is, for many employers, we still do now a different type of pilot. So for many employers that are, this sounds like something that would fit, but they're still not totally sure, we'll still do engagements in which they get to try it for a quarter, and they get to pilot it with a smaller segment of their employee population, so they can get a feel for the experience, and then based on that, make a decision on if they want to roll it out for their whole population.
That's great. So after the pilot program, the 6 months, did you roll people in and start working with them automatically, or did you take some time to refine the product and then kind of relaunch it?
Totally took time.
Okay.
It took time. We knew that maybe if the learnings had been different, we wouldn't have had to. But we launched with the pilot was really a minimal viable product, where we knew, like, okay, this is what we need in order to operate it. And the other part is, like, there were some aspects of it that were significant changes. Some of them from a product perspective, but the other changes were really, we refined our business model, knowing that we wanted to be able to serve not just, I didn't mention this at the beginning. One of the places where we started to begin with was very narrowly focused on high performers. So knowing that would be a small percentage of the employee population. So our business model looked a little bit different. But then what happened when COVID hit, something took place that we all know about, which is working remotely became far more prevalent,
Right.
and or having some sort of a hybrid work. And so now Maxwell started to become more attractive to those employers, where now you can offer your benefits in a way that it doesn't matter if you work in the office or from the home office or from the beach. You always have it accessible via your application. So one of our learnings was we need to be not focused just on your high performers or your top performers. Maxwell needs to work from the C-suite to the front lines. But in order to make that work, then our business model also needed to change. So that's the other part of the reason why we kind of stopped, took some time also to play around and decide, okay, if we did it this way, and collect feedback again from employers and say, hey, this is what we're thinking. What do you think? Or what are we missing? So.
Yeah, it sounds like if you're going after high performers, you can charge a little more per employee, but if you're going after everybody in your organization, your prices have to come down just because of volume and things like that. So that's probably a tough pivot to make, to go from that higher cost to more of a value option. And not that you're not getting what you need to financially, but it's you never want to have to change your pricing structure. But if it's what the customers need, then it's what the customers need.
Yeah, and you know what? The place where we landed is a place where it can be both. So we can now serve really from the C-suite to the front line, but they can, this is where my marketing segmentation background comes to play then. But then you can also segment it. So you can say, you know what, based on performance, my top performers, I wanna allot them with a higher budget because they have proven performance and want to give them that. Or in some instances, we market segment different, like with actually accounting would be a good example of that, or law firms, where sometimes your associate level is the area where you have the most turnover, where you can provide those associates with a higher budget because you want to retain them. Not that you don't want to retain your partners, you also want to retain them, but your partners also theoretically should have the means in order to be able to get the help they need. So that's another way to look at it. So do you give certain portions of the employee population bigger budget versus others? So we landed, I guess, in a little bit of both places.
Yeah, and it gives a little bit of incentive too to those lower performers, that if they know if they perform at a certain level, they can start earning some of these benefits. So I really like that market segmentation structure. It's a good thing you had that background, right?
Yeah. Comes handy.
Yeah. So what were some of the biggest challenges you ran into starting the business?
Let's see, where do we begin? Well, COVID certainly has been a struggle for everyone. Like I mentioned, some of the conversations that we were having with employers just came to an end, or to a pause, I should say, because we couldn't engage them. But many of them were like, hey, sorry, right now is not a good time. So that's been one. The other is when you are a B2B solution, the more established businesses, they're looking for proven solutions. And so that can be a challenge too. It's really hard to be a proven solution until someone gives you a chance. So really finding those companies that are innovative, that, they're visionary, that they can see how this is actually gonna help them improve their bottom line, and that your success is their success. It can be a challenge. And then the third one I would highlight is I'm running a tech company, and I am tech smart, but I'm not technical. So that's also been a challenge. It's been a learning curve for me to, find the right people to help achieve the vision. And then also a lot for me to understand too. Sometimes I have like a pretty good idea of like, hey, we want to do this and we want to do that, but I don't know, technically speaking, how we can actually accomplish it in the best way.
Yeah. So with that, you have to lean on people a lot. How big is your team?
Oh, we're still pretty small. There's, let me think, 6 of us.
Okay. So when you're hiring, what kind of process do you go through for that to make sure that you're bringing people on that kind of fill your knowledge gaps and fit your culture and things like that?
I talk about this all the time. There's 2 that are very, very important to me, beyond skill set. Obviously, skill set, like I was just talking about, like I know I'm not technical, I need someone that is technical. But beyond that, is learning orientation is incredibly important to me, because you might have, for example, let's do programming. Maybe you're the languages that you can program in are X, Y, and Z, and now you're going to need to have yet another one. If you have learning orientation, you're going to learn it, you're going to figure it out. But also in terms of solving for things, a startup is not like joining another place of employment that is more established.
Right.
There's a lot of things that are not written down, documented, and you need to figure it out. There's lots of things that you experience for the first time. So you need to have someone that has that learning orientation, that get it done attitude of like, I don't know, but I'll learn, I'll figure it out. So that is super important to me. And the second one is values alignment. So some of the ways where we put out our role docs when we're hiring for the position or looking for someone, it's very clearly highlighted that, hey, you need to care about diversity and equity and inclusion. You need to believe on the vision of the company and want to create a world in which it's possible to excel at work and at home. Things like those. So it's clear from the get-go, this is what you're getting. If this is, for any reason doesn't resonate with you, then it's probably not going to be a place where you're going to have a lot of fun. So that's probably the 2 biggest filters for hiring.
And then as far as leading the team, now that you've got 6 people, I think that includes you, 6 people on the team, you may be leading people that you don't know how to do what they do. What are the challenges or ways that you've overcome that? So like you said, someone who's in coding, doesn't sound like that's something you've done. How do you manage someone that does something that you don't completely?
Well, a lot of times, you just have to trust, and that's my aspect too. That's why values alignment is also so important, right? Like it's just trusting to, like, hey, I'm gonna trust that what you're telling me that's how it needs to be built, or that's hard, or that can be done. To be that. But it's also asking a lot of questions too, and trying to understand it. Like I said, like, okay, well, or like if someone tells me, well, it's because I'm having an issue with the invite. I'm like, do you mean, is that a technical term? Can you tell me more about that? So it's a lot of me learning too.
Curiosity.
Yes, trusting, but also asking questions about like, why is it like that? Why couldn't it be like this? Or tell me more. What other options do we have? So yeah. Some of that, and then many times, honestly, is just trust. Like they'll give me, I'm like, okay, well, what do you recommend? And then they can be like, well, this or that. Okay, so if we have to make a decision, which one would you go with? And then trusting that, and then we learn. We test it out, and if it didn't actually work out, then we can back it up. So, but yeah, at this stage, at least, it's a lot of trusting the team and their expertise.
And then kind of going back to the start, so there's obviously been quite a ramp up period for you. You went from idea, sounds like it was kind of stirring in you for a while you were working, not just in HR, but even before that when you were in marketing. You went from idea to this pilot, paused for a bit, and relaunched. So that takes some funding, I assume. So if you don't mind talking about that, I'm an accountant, as you know, so I always like that question. Did you have any investors or anything? Did you put money in personally? How did you get the funding together to get the business up and running, especially over that long period of time?
Yeah, that is like, okay, wait a minute. You need money. No, I agree. And especially when it comes to our business model and B2B, B2B cycles are really long.
Yeah.
So to make a sale, it takes a long time. So once you make a sale, then it's great because, it's meatier than making a direct-to-consumer sale in most cases. But it takes a while. So it's been a number of things. The first one has been, family and friends investment, which part of it is really my investment, me and my spouse investing on it. That's probably the heaviest one. And then the second has been really leveraging what's available, in this case, where we're located in Omaha, Nebraska. In Nebraska, there's something that is called the Prototype Grant that can be used for technology and creating an MVP. So we really leveraged that too. Participated in some pitch competitions, and we won a pitch competition in 2020. So that really helped too. And then really using all those in conjunction with being just really scrappy and creative. Like I mentioned, we made sure to create something that was an MVP and did not spend $1 at all in coding that. We used all of these out-of-the-box tools that allowed us to create a fully working web application platform, but without having to write a line of code.
Wow, that's impressive.
So that was a really good way to launch it. Like I said, being scrappy until we knew for sure. And that has been, honestly, if I was going to recommend to anyone a way to do it without spending a lot of money, that has been probably my best decision. Which, if I think about it, I'm like, oh, if I had spent money creating that MVP, we would have used tons of funds, and then we would have had to redo everything based on learnings. So
your recommendation is don't spend a lot up front, get that MVP out cheaply, and pivot and adjust it as you kind of go.
Yeah, which I get it. It's really hard. Like I said, it's really hard when it is in combination with the fact that if you are B2B, like I mentioned, one of the challenges is getting someone to try it and to believe in it enough. But if you can find that right combination of someone, again, that it's an innovator, that is willing to give it a go, that even if you have to do it for free, even if you're saying that, hey, the pilot will be totally for free, but just so we can get the learnings from it, I think it's still going to cost you a lot less than it would if you go to fully create a coded solution.
Yeah, because you have more information. You know what the client wants now. You know what they're looking for. You know what doesn't work. I think that's a lot of people don't understand. Knowing what doesn't work is just as, if not more important than knowing what does work.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. So what do you think your strengths are as an entrepreneur? What's helped you be successful so far?
Yikes, I don't know. Let me think about that.
That's always a hard question. I don't ask that often, but because most people have trouble thinking about what they're good at. They know where their shortcomings are every day.
Yeah. No, I think, and maybe I look for it just because maybe it's talking about like what I see on myself or what I like to think of myself, but I have get it done positive attitude. I think that's definitely a strength. Like there is nothing that I ever been fearful of actually taking on. So there's lots of jobs that I have taken on in the past where, like I said, I didn't know. I had never done that before. And I didn't let that stop me. And I look at it the same way with this. It's like, well, everyone starts from the same place. They didn't know before until they did it, and then they do.
Yep.
So so that's one aspect, which, kind of it's along this learning orientation component. So I think that's a strength.
I think that's an incredibly important one. I haven't met very many successful founders that are negative, right? If you're negative, you're probably not even going to start for the most part. But once you hit that first hurdle, you're probably going to quit. So I think that's not everybody's born to be positive. I feel like I was, and I just meeting you briefly, I think you were. But if you're not a positive person, you need to develop that and see the opportunity in things. I hear it often. Somebody I spend all the time with says, you either think life happens to you or life happens for you. And if you can get that happens for you attitude and saying, what is the opportunity in this adversity, that's where you see success. So I think anybody listening to this, that's an important thing. If you're not positive to begin with, you need to figure out how to kind of change your mindset.
Oh, I totally agree. I totally agree because it's a roller coaster. There's times where it feels like, yay, like the stars align and, like you get clients but then there's plenty of times, and that's what most people don't get to see and what most people don't talk about because, you want to paint a positive, image of your business. And, no one is ever looking, let me look for a company that's struggling and that's who I'm going to give my business to. But there is times where things don't go out like you planned, or like the sale that you were counting on doesn't actually happen, and you were counting on that funding for something else. So, and then all the struggles that come along with what you just mentioned, David, which is like you also have your family and you also have these other responsibilities in your life that you want to tend to, that you want to be a part of. And as a founder, a lot of times it means prioritizing and reprioritizing, and so that can be hard. So yeah, I would say that. And then probably the other one of my strengths is that that one I've known for a long time, that I'm a natural connector. So I'm very good about connecting with people, connecting people to each other, or connecting the dots between like, hey, I hear you talking about this, but that really relates to this other thing.
Right.
Let me tell you why. So, and I've used that to give you an example of how that has been useful. Is I make, it's helped me find my core group of people that I can rely on, and find that support for those times where the roller coaster is going down, not going up. To remind you, like, hey, you're good. It's gonna go up again, and then you can rely on them also for help. And then also creating connections that later, and to be clear, I create the connections not in the hopes that later it's going to bring it back, but it does. The point is, like, if you're able to create connections and are able to put people in touch with other individuals that would be valuable for them, you get what you give, right? So eventually that's the meeting also like, hey, I remember that you connect, let me connect you to this other person that I think, could help you out. So that has been a good skill set to have.
Yeah, I think that's really good. I find a lot of the times when you do something for the right reason, you see a good result from it. There are people I've gone out to lunch with just because I haven't seen them in a while. And then maybe 3 or 4 months later, they'll call and say they need help with some accounting function in their business. I didn't even know they had a business, things like that. Just if you're connecting with people and you genuinely care about them and their well-being, they'll notice. They know that. They know when someone's being fake and just connecting with them, trying to get something out of them. But if you're connecting with them for the right purpose, trying to just care about them as a person, that goes so much farther than 100 cold calls could. Just that personal connection with people is so important. And then connecting people with like-minded ideas and similar in their goals and things like that just creates a really strong ring of people around you that can pull you up when you need it, like you said, in kind of those bottoms of the roller coaster.
I agree. It's sort of like giving a gift, right? When you give a gift to someone, right? Always said connecting for the right reasons. If you give a gift to someone, and you really hung up on them, like saying thank you to you, or you did it so they like something like that, and they don't, then the whole giving experience like gets soured up. But if you give a gift to someone because you're hoping that they like it, and even if they never thank you for it, you still get the satisfaction from having it to them. So
that's good. So we just got a couple minutes left. Just wanted to kind of give a broad question for anybody starting a business or already started a business. What's your number one piece of advice that you'd give them?
It is, find a support network. Find a core group of people, of like-minded individuals that can help you through. Other people that maybe are in the same space, that either maybe they're in the same, like maybe they're in B2B and they can, show you the ropes. But I guess the biggest portion is like you find those people that can provide you support, find those individuals also that can that you can ask them questions like, hey, how did you do this? Like, how did you incorporate? Like, if you need to ask them that, or like, hey, I'm having this issue with someone that I brought into the team. Have you ever had an issue? How did you handle it? Especially because I feel like the startup world, the entrepreneurial world, it can feel pretty lonesome if you are the only one in your network that's doing that. If the vast majority of your family and close friends are an employee to a company rather than someone that is leading a company, it's harder to relate. And so it can be, like I said, it can be lonesome. So that would be my biggest piece of advice. Find your people.
Yeah. That's good advice. I know my business started getting a lot more successful once I started meeting with a group regularly of business owners. There was 4 of us, and we just, even if we didn't have advice for the other person, just knowing that someone else went through it before helps mentally to get over
someone else that can be like, I know, isn't it so hard?
Yeah. Oh. Well, Adriana, thank you so much. I really enjoyed getting to know you. We only met for 15 minutes probably the other day, and this is this was a great conversation. I enjoyed getting to know you and your business and hearing everything that you have going on. So thanks for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for inviting me, and thank you to Kelly Mann for referring to you.
Yeah. Thanks, Kelly.
Shout out to Kelly.
And so that was another episode of the podcast. We appreciate everybody joining us. Please, we want your feedback. We want to know if there's anybody you'd like to see on the podcast, please refer them to us. Any topics you'd like to see us cover, we want to hear it. Just like Adriana did with her business, we want feedback from you. So please share that with us. We want to make this what you want it to be and want to help you grow your business as we grow our business. So thank you, everybody, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Businesses Start Here podcast. We hope you were inspired and encouraged by today's podcast. We would love to hear your feedback. Please send us an email at podcast@villiotti.com. That's podcast@VILLIOTTI.com. And be sure to share, like, and comment all of our content.